Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody to our county this is Finance and Budget. This evening on February the 11th, for all the husbands out there, you are less than a few days away from Valentine's Day, and this is your warning that I will give you this evening. So with that, we're going to move on to prayer and pledge. I believe Justice Washington has agreed to do us that honor this evening. Justice Washington.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together to serve our community and our county. We ask you to give us wisdom to guide our decisions and our discussions and our actions. Lord, your word says that if we commit our plans to you, that you will guide our steps. And so tonight we surrender our plans, we surrender our agendas, we surrender our intentions and our motives to you. And we remain focused on what is best for the people of Washington County. I ask you to bless everyone that is in this room, bless our community, bless our county, and we pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Justice Washington. With that, we're going to move to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have any motions with regard to the agenda? Justice Stafford?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda by Justice Stafford, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The agenda has been adopted. We will now move to the election of the Finance and Budget Committee Chair. With that, Justice Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to nominate my colleague, Justice Kyle Lyons, as Chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay. I have a motion to nominate Justice Lyons. Are there any further nominations for Chairman? Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I nominate my colleague, J.P. Shonder Washington, as Chair of Finance and Budget. Thank you.
We have a nomination of Justice Washington to chair the Finance and Budget Committee. Are there any other nominations? I don't see any others. With that, we'll close nominations, and I believe we'll try to do this by a show of hands. So if...
Judge, I call for a roll call vote.
Okay. No, we're going to do a show of hands. Those in support of Justice Lyons, please raise your hand. Keep them up high. 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 9. Are those in favor of Justice Washington? 4. Justice Lyons will now chair the Finance and Budget Committee. Justice Lyons. I'll help you with it.
Thanks.
Most important part.
Well, there you go.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right. Well, appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for your votes and your confidence to allow me to chair this committee. The next item, number 5, is the election of the Finance and Budget Committee Vice Chair. Do I have nominations? Justice Dean?
Thank you, Chair.
All right, David.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Willie Lemming as vice.
We have a nomination for Willie, J.P. Lemming, sorry, for the vice chair. Any additional nominations?
Wow.
Landslide.
No? Okay. Go ahead and vote. Raise your hand. All those in favor for J.P. Lemming to be the vice chair? 1, 2, 3. 15. Congratulations, J.P. Lemming. Moving on to item number 6 in the reports. We'll start with the treasurer's report. Treasurer Hill, please. Key up your mic, please.
Go to 4.1, this is the treasurer's financial summary for January. Most all funds continue to be in good shape. Look at that first line, 1,000 general. Almost 5.4 came in, 3.8 was expended. Some of that 1.7 of the 5.3 was from the treasurer and the collector paying back paying back the bills that general paid for us during 2024. 2,000 road. Revenues came in just a little bit below expenditures. If you look down at 3017 jail, just the opposite, revenues came in a little bit over expenditures. If you look from 1,000 all the way to the next page, that first subtotal, 4,800 radio system sales tax. That is the quorum court's purview. Those are the funds that you will be doing the budgets and the appropriations for here in a few months. Fund 6,000 all the way to the end, 6,840. Those are mainly pass-through funds that I manage. Of course, I get audited on those as well as the others. But anyway, we began the month with 103 million, ended the month with a little over 100 million in the bank. Let's see, 4.2, ARPA report. See at that expense line down at the bottom, it's 33,539,751 has been expended. And for the new JPs, we've really only expended 23 million. You see at 10 million, about the fourth line down. That's in its own special fund, but it's still part of the ARPA money. It shows it as an expense on this side, but none of that has been spent yet in that special fund we have set up for it. Not a tremendously busy month in ARPA. Most of the activity is from the EOC construction project, and we have a little over 13 million remaining in that fund. 4.3, 1 cent sales tax. I added a little more information for the new JPs. It's a 1 cent countywide tax that we share with the cities, and our share is 16.41%. When I first started years and years ago, that was in the 30% range, but every census we lose population percentages to the cities. So our share is going to continue to drop, I'm sure. But anyway, of the 16.41% we get, 60% of that goes to general, 40% goes to road. And for January, we received 966,000, which was a good month, about 5.5% over the same period last year. And these taxes, like you see, January tax, that's actually from November's collections. We're 2 months behind when the state sending us our collections. Finally, 4.4, the quarter-cent sales tax. This all goes to county jail. No sharing with any cities or anything. So 1.4 million came in. That's 81,000 over the same period last year. 5.83% increase. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Treasurer Hill?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 7, employee insurance report. Mr. Angel?
Good evening. Congratulations, Chairman Lyon.
Thank you,
Although,
sir.
as much as the judge was smiling, I'm not sure it is congratulations. I don't know. He got out of there in a hurry.
What did I get into? Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I saw that smile. Okay, well, we have all of our numbers for 2024, so I may take a little more time going over these. I won't belabor the point, but it's always kind of nice to look at a full year. I will tell you before we get started, The aggregate stop loss company is still doing their audit on what that exact payout will be. I'll give you guys some, I think, pretty accurate estimates, but they've had 2 people that they've asked for an audit of the specific stop loss, but one way or another, the county should get reimbursed these funds, okay? So last month, our total cost came in at $692,278.82. That's about $2,000 below where our average cost ended up, so we had a very average month. You know, I'm pretty comfortable seeing those numbers come in. You know, we had those 2 months in the middle of the year where we were over 900,000, and I think we were all pretty scared then, but it's really leveled out. For the year, our expected max claims is just under $7 million. You'll see in that first column there on your left with the large numbers, it's $6.947 million. Our total claims paid came in at $7.494 million. So when we get that aggregate check back, which we expect the aggregate reimbursement to come in April, I think we can look for somewhere between 500,000 on the low mark and about 550,000 on the high mark for that reimbursement. So we don't ever want to have an insurance claim, but this is the reason we purchase it, and we came out way ahead this year on that stop loss. We did not receive a pharmaceutical rebate last month. We thought, or we had hoped one might come in where we could close on December. It did not. That being said, within the next 30 days or so, we expect that to come in. So hopefully, when we're here together on March 11th, we'll also see another pharmaceutical rebate come in, which will help us start 2025 a little better. And hopefully, we don't have the same experience we had with our claims we had in 2024. I will remind the quorum court that the attachment point on the aggregate insurance went up. That's normal. Basically what happens when you have a bad year, they say, okay, that's fine, but your expected claims are now higher than they were before because the health of the group is different than it was previously. Our premium did not change very much on the aggregate stop loss. I believe the change was right at $1 per participating employee per month. So very small change on the premium, but where that could hit us if we have another bad year next year, that attachment point went up from around $7 million to around $9 million, which is where that aggregate would stop, would kick in next year to bail, or excuse me, this year. I'm too busy looking back to bail us out. So I'll stop and see, Justice, if you want to see if there's any questions on stop loss. I've thrown a lot of
Any
big
questions
terms out there.
Mr. Angel? Okay.
All right. One final thing I'll say is on our balance, the Employee Benefits Fund, we ended up negative about $150,000 on the fund this month. So we still have a fairly substantial reserve there of $1.69 million. But I will point out again with that aggregate attachment point going up, if we have another year in 2025 like we had in 24, I would assume that that amount would probably deplete by the end of 2025. So hopefully we're a little healthier this year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Item number 8, the comptroller's report. Mr. Sherman?
Everybody take your vitamins. I'm hoping that that turns out well next year. We're looking pretty good. We're 8.3% through the year. It's the first month. There's no real outliers. General services there, which is purchasing, it was at 30%, but that's because they pay the general liability up front. It was $69,000, so that's the majority of that. A couple small ones that are 100% one-time payment. So we're looking good in that area. Is there any questions on that? Next report. The next report is basically, this is just a recap, looking at the unappropriated reserves. And you only passed one ordinance for $7,000 that needed to be bumped up. So the unappropriated reserves is $4.1 million right now in the county general, the general fund. And then our general reserve fund, which basically is our savings account for, you know, if we have any kind of catastrophic event like they had in Bentonville, we have $13.9 million in there. That's pretty good. I think you remember when we did the math and we talked about how much you needed in there. They basically say 60 days of expenses. So we're looking good. That's about 60 days of expenses. So, is there any questions on that report? Okay, I handed out another deal that we're going to go over. Just it's a 24 recap. It's up on the board here too, which I think this is important to find out how we did. So last year, total revenues were $103 million. You can see where it's broken out there. Property taxes were up 10%. Sales taxes were up 3%. Big decrease. So, you know, we're basically flat in revenue, but that decrease was federal aid. You know, federal aid starting to dry up as far as the COVID money that was coming in and stimulus money, things like that. So I think it went down by about $3 million. So that's starting to dry up. Cash in the bank that you guys actually have control of. There's other agency funds, but on the end of the year we had $84 million in the bank. So the original 2024 budget was $114 million that we passed. If you look at all the ordinances, counting the salary sweeps and everything, we added $1.3 million over the year. So the amended budget that you guys appropriated was $115 million. You can see how it's broken out there. General fund 45%, roads 15%, jail 22%, and all other funds were 17%. So our total expenses ended up at $104 million off of that 115. So we were $11 million under budget this past year, which is pretty good in my opinion. Some of that is that we're still budgeting pretty high in personnel money, that we do these salary sweeps and these vacancies. We sort of combated that this year where we unfunded about 20 vacancies. We still recognize them as FTEs that are required. If everything gets filled up, we might come back and ask you for more money, but that would be a good thing. That has not happened in years. So I'm trying to get the budget shrunk down to where the actual cash flow is. So you can see the breakout there. General fund was 43%, roads 16%, jail 21%, and other funds were 17%. So that's our total expenses right there. If you look at the $11 million under budget, that's where you can see where everybody fell under budget. So the general fund was $12 million under budget. Roads was 4%. I mean, general fund was 12% under budget. Roads was 4%, jail 10%, and other funds was 8.4%. Now, of that $11 million, 5.1 was personnel money. So in addition to the salary sweeps you did, you could add onto that 5. That's how much we over budgeted in personnel money. All other type of funds were 6.4. That'd be capital outlay, any kind of operation and maintenance. That's what I like to call them. So basically, we were $11 million under budget. Labor cost, I think I remember telling you guys, I thought that it would turn out to be $55 million, and it turned out to be $54.4 million. So I'm proud of myself. You know, it's always paranoid, makes me paranoid to come up with a figure to throw out there in the middle of the year, but it did land right on. So that is 52% of total expenses, which I like to be around 50%, you know, give or take some. I'm still learning sort of where maybe a county local government should be. If you look at the expenses there, the general fund was $30 million on a $52 million budget. But if you think about those missions, a lot of those missions within that fund are office workers, you know, the collector, assessor, all that kind of stuff. So there's not a whole lot of operation and maintenance like you would see down at the jail or other places that require a whole lot of other expenses. So, but overall, 52% countywide, I think that's pretty good. I think our salary sweep was about $5 million or so. So hopefully the salary sweep's going to get smaller because of what we're doing with the unfunded positions. Is there any questions on 2024? I think that that's good. I consider you guys being fiscally responsible plenty of money in the bank, coming under budget. I mean, it's all you can ask for. Good.
No questions? Thank you, Comptroller
Yep.
Sherman. Okay, item number 9 is an ordinance establishing the salaries for justices of the peace and for other matters pertaining thereto. I submitted this ordinance, got into a scenario where there was discussions about increasing the JP's pay during the budget period last year for this year, but there was nothing ever put in the ordinance itself to do that increase. The thought to be a item in there that talks about all elected officials turned out to be what was phased from the administration as a scripting error, that it had a word left out that was there in previous budgets. So accepted that and just decided we would deal with it cleanly and just submit the ordinance. Basically, we all spend meeting time, but we spend a lot of time outside of these meetings. I know I do. I know a lot of you do based on your questions, your preparedness in the meetings, the discussions we have. So the time we spend is more than just one quorum court meeting and 2 committee meetings a month. There's a lot of time outside in preparation so we can come here and have good debate and make good decisions for the county, in my opinion. Washington County is considered a Class 7. There's 3 Class 7 counties in Arkansas, and they're all the largest counties in Arkansas, greater than 200,000 people in population. Based on the pay we were getting, which was $200 per meeting, that ranked us as about 71st of 75 counties in JP pay. We were down with counties that were ranked as Class 1. Basically. I've got a spreadsheet. I didn't bring it tonight. I apologize. More than happy to share that with anybody. I took the 2024 Association of Arkansas Counties salary, because that 25's not out, and I used that data in the spreadsheet and then did some sorting to bring these numbers about. Again, anybody wants to see the raw data, I'm more than happy to share that. Just let me know. I can send the Excel sheet over. Okay? Currently, we're told that in the budget, this wouldn't increase our budget. Our budget is budgeted at the max amount. And we can, Comptroller Sherman can provide more detail around that if you go ahead. So, is this on? No.
Come on, yeah, okay. So when we did, I did put in the budget $300 a meeting, but it was kind of like just stuck it in there, so Justice Lyons. So we did budget a certain amount, so we will have to, we didn't budget at the max this year, so we will have to reappropriate some money. It's not an issue at all, but I have that figure. Okay. So if you go to the max, we'll just,
appreciate the clarification. Yeah. And again, we are one of the 3 largest, so that's the reason I brought this together. With this, it puts us back up with the 3 counties that are Class 7. In that range of probably the top 3 highest paid JPs in the county, in the state. With that, I move that we pass this on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Okay. So I made the motion, JP Lyons made the motion, I heard JP Dean with the second.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
I just need to know, I think we all need to know before we get started. Are you as chair going to enforce that each JP only speaks for 2 times and no more than 5 minutes? So when we were discussing.
Well, my understanding, that's the rules.
Well, I know, but we haven't always done that. That's what I mean.
Yeah, we've tried to enforce it too. I know 5 is new. Well, we're going to try. I've never heard of the 5 either, so I'm with you. But that's what I understand. 5 minutes. That
5 minutes.
5 minutes you can speak. Okay.
That's fine. I'm not objecting. I just
I know, and that it was new to me as well. So,
I just want to know
yes, we
before
should
get
try and
started.
abide by our rules.
Okay.
So we're going to try to do that. We'll see how it works. Trying to keep up with it primarily is what I meant by that. Sorry. JP hires.
Oh, thanks. I just had a question. You answered all of the questions that I had written before the meeting already. But there is one question that I wanted to ask. Because, so if you miss a regular quorum court meeting, your pay is taken out like by $900. And if you miss a committee meeting, it's taken out at $300. And my question is that like pre-tax or post-tax? Like, am I gonna owe the county money if my kid gets sick and I can't come to a meeting?
It should be based on what you get paid before taxes. My understanding, and I don't know if Counselor Lester, I see you back there, if you can help, but my understanding is that would be taken out post-taxes, and then taxes would be taken out on that new amount, would be my understanding on that. Or do you, I probably, yeah, you're, sorry.
I would say, is the red light? Okay, cool. I would say that like, what would happen is if in that scenario, you would have the next time around, we wouldn't pay. So there would be no taxes really involved. It would be on the gross. I'm kind of interested, this is just my, well, I don't know if I can ask that question, but where the 913, like the rationale behind that. But it would be pre-tax, like, so, like if you, because what would happen basically if you missed, we would have already paid you, you know, for whatever meetings. So then the next meeting you come, or the next two pay periods, because the way I read the ordinance is, if you look at the article, it's the maximum paid over 26 pay periods during normal pay periods that the employees get. So you would be paid every 2 weeks, and then if you incurred a debt, you would just not get paid until that debt's paid over the next couple times. So
I have more questions.
Yeah, so I just say that a little differently. The way, first of all, the way I came up with the numbers is I took the max, I used the three, I figured the quorum court's most important meeting to us. It's where we pass the ordinances, it's where our business is done. Committees aren't as important, so I used what we had talked about for the committee meeting at 300 times 2 times 12 and subtracted that from the max. I took the remainder and divided it by 12 because we're gonna have 12 quorum court meetings. That's how I came up with those numbers, okay? What I understand is, to the point we're paid that amount across 26 pay periods, if in, say, pay period 2, well, let's just use me, I missed yesterday's meeting, or last week's meeting. So my pay period where that fell into would be deducted that amount for my gross, taxes would be based on that, and then I would get paid at that next pay period based on that reduced amount. Does that make better sense? Or,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. My other question with this is, I'm curious as to why we are moving to kind of a salary instead of actual per diem. So a salary with deductions if you don't show up, instead of being compensated for the ones that you do show up for. I'm just curious about that.
Can you repeat that? I apologize.
So right now, we're paid a per diem, right?
So much per meeting.
Right, so I sign in,
Yep.
I get paid considering how many meetings I attended. With this one, we're getting paid regardless, and then we give money back if we miss. I'm just curious, it's a big difference. Being paid a per diem is different than being paid a salary.
It just was different. I think it protects us a little bit if we combine meetings because of a holiday, then that doesn't affect the pay.
Okay.
Right? We can make amendments. I'm fine with that. It just was the thought process.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. And then the other thing that I want to say is I'm curious about, like, I guess this is legal. I know that in the federal Constitution, based on the 27th Amendment, you are not allowed to give yourself a pay increase during the session that you are in. You can vote in a pay increase, but it will only go into effect for the next group that is sworn in. And I know that this isn't federal and this is county and it's not Arkansas, but it's the one I'm the most familiar with. So I was just curious about, like, if we are allowed to change our pay, like, after we've already been sworn in, for us being effective immediately.
Councilor Lester, can you help with that question?
So I've never looked into that, to be real honest with you, so I can't really stand here today and say absolutely you can. I've not come across anything in my 8 years of being here that suggests otherwise, but that's certainly probably something I would need to look into and actually research. I mean, you set your own pay, but I'm not aware of any restriction on that, but I'd be happy to have something by the quorum court meeting.
Okay.
Or before then, I can email out to everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
Sure.
You good? JP Dennis?
Yeah, I think it's Massengale.
No, I'm sorry. JP Massengale. I apologize. I'll get used to this thing.
So the way the ordinance is written, I'm a little confused about what the exact amount is. I guess it's a salary, but what is that salary? There's no.
It's
Certain amount.
19.
It's 19 something.
19 something. It's in here.
It should be 18,159.
So the max is $19,118 that you can pay yourself. If you divide that across 26 pay periods, that comes out to $735 basically,
Okay.
pay period. So there you go.
Thank you, sir. You good? Anything else?
Yeah, I still have another question. Well, this is a statement. I mean, that's, even if it's $300 a meeting, that, about 3 meetings in 12 months, that's about 11,000 a year. So 19,000 is, I guess it's making the quorum court kind of worth 900 based on what's written here as far as what you get docked for, 913. It seems like a considerable increase. So I just make that statement. And then it talks about part-time employees. How does are there any other part-time employees that aren't covered? weren't covered
Again,
by
we're
the
not
original?
employees of the county. We are elected officials of the county. I think the part-time comes into, there's been a distinction in some other ordinances of a full-time elected versus a part-time. You know, a full-time elected is like your assessor, your treasurer, your judge, where they're here X number of hours a day, X number of days a week, et cetera. Whereas we're here based on what we provide for the meetings and the things we do outside the meetings to prepare for them.
Okay. I'm just curious if we're missing anybody like planning commission or any.
They're all covered somewhere else.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank
I
you.
actually did see some of those today researching something else, so yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. JP Koger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry about my voice. How much, you said we'd have to reappropriate, how much exactly in dollars amounts are we talking about? Because last year, if we got paid for 36 meetings, that would have been $7,200. And so it looks like now we're going to go from $7,200 to $19,000 and something? Is that correct? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, that's absolutely correct. The amount we would have to reappropriate would be, because of the way that I budgeted it at 300, plus some other, I think there was a little bit extra in there. We would need additional $70,770 for salaries. And then the FICA match, which, because we match your Medicare and Social Security, which is 7.65%, we'd need additional $5,400 basically. So we need additional $76,183.90.
Could you say that last number again, please?
$76,183.90. And so the budget actually, last year they did put the max in there. This year it got lowered a little bit when we were talking that 300 number. So we would have to put it up back to where it was, which increased a little bit. Like they increase the max every year. So I don't know exactly, just a small increase, but it wouldn't be much of an increase over last year.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It would not be much of an increase over last year that we budgeted.
Okay.
Because the max was budgeted last year.
Right.
But according to the pay and the ordinance, you was only 200 a meeting.
Right.
Which was 71st in the nation, or in the state.
Okay. Let me see, my next question is, how come we don't have a line, shouldn't this ordinance have a line budget that, a section that says we're taking, we're setting out the amounts for each line item in the budget, like for salaries, FICA, Medicare? We usually have that when we have.
Given the information I got today, yeah, we probably should have. Counselor, given the new information that the max was not budgeted, do we need to update this to actually identify the transfer from general fund? Is that correct?
Correct. So there's three line items that should be in personnel, and we can get those exact figures, but it would be part-time salaries. Then we have Social Security and Medicare matching. And then there is workers' compensation. You guys are covered under workers' compensation, but it's very low. Like right now we have it budgeted $188. I would have to check and see how we actually pay that. I'm not sure what the premiums are on that, but it would probably be pretty low. It's $188. So. That's not per person. That's for the whole quorum court.
Okay. Excuse me. My next question, if I can speak. It says in here that, any justice of the peace, that, this is Article 4, that misses more than one half of any meeting shall be deemed absent from said meeting. So who's going to actually time and see if a JP leaves before we get halfway through the meeting?
I think it's just going to be obvious. Basically, if we come to the meeting, we should be here to work. Ma'am? Yeah, if we all sit down, somebody gets up, goes to the back room, and doesn't come back, they're gone.
Well, I know it, but it says half the meeting, not 3/4 or whatever. Right. So that's why I was asking.
Right.
Okay. And hold on just a minute, please. I have a problem with penalizing a JP for missing a meeting.
With state law.
The state law? Okay.
State law gives you one absence to be paid.
Okay.
And that's it. And I think he referenced the state law in here.
Okay, well, that's good then. That's good to know. My other thing is, this is a huge raise, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I agree with you about how much, that we do spend a lot of time getting ready. But I just think this is way too much. I'd like to, we didn't even give our county employees a cost of living wage raise this year. So I just think it looks bad for us to sit up here, since we control how much people make in the county, and give ourselves this huge raise from 7,200 to 19,000.
But I believe, and Comptroller Sherman can correct me or provide the actuals, I think we gave the employees a substantial raise this year, correct?
It was a raise. It didn't include it wasn't a COLA raise.
But they got a raise.
Yeah, well, some of them haven't seen it yet, sir.
What's the difference between a COLA raise and a raise?
Some of them haven't seen it.
I don't see any difference in it. Go ahead. Oh.
We gave raise this year on step plan. So the raises were all over the board this year as far as who got what, because we had to, we were honoring some of the deals that were done in the past, Sheriff's Department, road. So the percentages are all over the board. In the future, everybody's 5% on a step plan. So you're going, unless you get promoted from one grade to the next grade, you have more responsibility or whatever. But if you're sitting in your job going forward, you would get 5%.
That's going
the
forward.
Employees.
That's going forward.
Going forward.
But
this year, some people got 15%, some people got 10, some people got hardly any. It was hard to, you know.
And some of those haven't gone in effect yet.
Yeah, some people got small, very raises. The people who got small raises are gonna, once their anniversary date hits of their position, they will get 5%.
Get another one.
So part of the problem, in my opinion, is you guys stayed way too low, too long. Quorum court,
Yeah.
you know, and then the other counties, like your partner counties, have all put it at the max. Their rationale, if you read in the paper for Bentonville, was just, you know, attracting good people. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you, JP Koger. JP Rhea Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, probably this is more for the comptroller as well. Right, just stay up here. How would this have an effect, or how would this have an effect? Or is this a separate line item in the budget for things like, you know, when members of the Quorum Court go travel to the Arkansas Association of Counties meeting and
This
get
would
reimbursed
not
for
have an
that?
effect. We already have money in the budget for that.
Okay, so that's a separate line item.
That
in the
is
budget.
separate line items, and they're all already spelled out.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That was really my only question, but other people, you may want to stick around. Who knows? To me, this all looks very reasonable. You know, I brought this up before. The Quorum Court, the pay has been $200 a meeting for at least, I don't know, what, a decade, maybe 12 years at least. You know, and we haven't been keeping up. The state legislature has been upping it every year or every 2 years, every time they meet. They're raising the maximum that quorum courts can get, but we haven't been keeping ourselves in parity with that. We are one of the 3 biggest counties in the state, and with almost everything else that we do up here, we always look at studies of looking at, okay, what is Benton County paying people? What is Pulaski County paying people in terms of what the pay should be for our own folks? And the one exception has been for the quorum court. We have not been doing that in that case, but we have been doing it for everyone else, including other elected officials. You know, and finally, the argument that I brought up before as well has to do with kind of what the comptroller touched on, which was Benton County's justification, is that when you keep for part-time elected officials, if you keep the pay too low, you're not getting, you're getting a narrower range of people who are willing to serve. You know, not that there's, you know, we're all good folks up here, but I've noticed whether it's the quorum court or whether it's a city council of different cities, a lot of times you end up with folks who are either retired or self-employed, you know, like I am. And so I think if you raise that cap up a little bit, you tend to attract more folks who are, you know, regular working people who work for somebody else. You know, not that we're not regular people, but, you know, the average person isn't retired or self-employed. So maybe we're getting a greater cross-section of folks from our community who are willing to serve once we raise that number. And so that's always been my argument in favor of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bringing this up originally, and part of my argument is you make decisions on a $110 million annual budget. I mean, you deserve to be paid. It's like 7,200 was way too low. You're third largest county in the state and getting paid third from the bottom. So that's just my opinion.
JP Burns?
What? Burns?
Bruns? I'm sorry, sir. I'll talk to you. I'll get it correct.
Say runs and put a B on the front of it.
Bruns. Thank you, sir.
There you go. My first question would be, has there already been an ordinance passed on this issue?
For this year?
I would assume last year for the budget for this year.
No, there is nothing in the ordinance budget for 2025 that addresses JP's pay raise.
Okay, so we did not approve the budget where this amount of money for the 300 per meeting, we did not pass that budget.
That's not in there. No, there's no identification that that increase would occur in the ordinance. I thought there was, there's a section that says all elected officials will be paid at the max rate. So I thought we were going to go back to the max rate.
Well, that's the law.
And that was what was going to be approved. That's what was determined by the administration to be a scripting error because it was missing a word that was there previously, that all full-time elected officials will be paid at the max rate. So I think there was, at least on my part, some understanding that it was addressed, whereas in actuality, due to the missing words, was not addressed.
Okay, so, but you're addressing the law.
I'm addressing the ordinance as it's written.
Okay, so we did not put this $300 in as a line item for last year and then pass that budget last year.
I think the hair you're splitting is if you look at the actual line item of the budgets, there is a line item in there with an amount, whatever that amount is. Again, my understanding was what was being budgeted was the max amount, which evidently didn't happen, and I didn't recognize it wasn't there. So there is a line item in there based on $300 a meeting, correct?
And that budget was passed by the previous quorum court.
Right. But there was nothing in our ordinance permitting us to be paid at $300, so we would still be paid at $200 regardless of what's in that line item, is my understanding of the law.
Okay. I just have a problem with it. If it was already passed by a previous budget, that why are we now into the new budget? I'm not saying your justification isn't good.
No.
I like hearing your justification, but I'm saying, if it was already passed,
In my opinion, if we do nothing and leave it as is, we're getting $200 a meeting, period. That's
We're
what the
getting
law
what?
$200 a meeting. That's what the last ordinance said that JP's salary would be, $200 a meeting, although they budgeted $300. Again, if you go back to 24's budget, it budgeted the max. It budgeted a little around $19,000 per JP in the budget, but we only got paid $200 a meeting because of the ordinance that stated we only got paid $200 a meeting. That's the hair we're splitting here.
well, I don't refute you on the ordinance and stuff, but I just think it should have been done last year.
Oh, I agree.
And it wasn't done last year, so coming into this year, I'm not sure is an appropriate way to handle it.
No, I don't disagree. It should have been in the budget last year. I think there were mistakes.
I really would feel much better if we would maybe pass an ordinance for next year's budget, and make it so that the public could give us input or something versus, I've already gotten one real ugly emoji while we were sitting here. So it just seems very aggressive.
I understand. I do understand. I think it's been this way a long time. I think we made mistakes throughout the budget. We're going to look to resolve those in some way. Not accusing anybody, not being critical of anybody. It's just as a fact, as a group.
And I don't think anybody's accusing anybody.
So
It's just
a group thing that we're going to have to be better at as we move through the budgetary process.
I'm just curious about the timing and whether we ought to
Right.
step back and say, let's wait till this next year.
The only basis I have for the timing is after the budget was passed, a question was asked, which generated the whole issues identified with the wording in the ordinance and whatnot. So,
Well, my feel is I'd feel much better about voting for it if we would wait.
do you have an amendment you want to offer, or?
Let me hear everybody else.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. J.P. Pond?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, by the way. Okay. First, I'd like to bring up, because, you know, we have people watching this, we have new people on the court, and it's kind of been touched on, but we're not capable, we don't have the authority to just pull numbers out of the sky and say, this is how much we want to make. We have guidelines and limits set by the state, by the state legislature. And with that being said, I'd also like to bring up that, you know, listening to this discussion, I'd like to, from what I understand, and we voted for a 2025 budget with the numbers in that budget, which that's a great big ordinance, with the numbers in there that would allowed for us a $300 a meeting pay for ourselves. But then we didn't turn around and pass any kind of ordinance saying that's what we're going to do. So we did it, we budgeted for it. So, and I'm kind of with you, if we budgeted for that, that would have been what I'd kind of figure we were going to pay. We're gonna, we need to, to understand without a whole lot of grandstanding or things like that. You know, do we want to hold off another year and say, well, that's going to eliminate more quality. I'm not saying more qualified people than us, but other qualified people who are very qualified for this, holding this office, maybe they could afford to if the raise gets passed. So the notion that, well, would I hold off this year having that paid and then pass it for the next quorum court to attract more of the qualified people, qualified as well as we are? I mean, I don't know. Am I making any sense? Maybe the whole discussion hasn't made a lot of, in some ways, been clear enough for onlookers. And I'm not, don't mean to argue with any of you. Hey, I'm fine with it either way. But looks kind of like maybe we've forgotten about the common sense and the practical application and gone into some political discussion on this. If I may be a little judgmental, which maybe I am sometimes. My tongue's bleeding. Hey, I'm going to let y'all go with this, and hey, I'm not going to be any great big protest either way. I'll be voting for the increase, but I would like for one other thing, and I think maybe this was asked in a different way. Have we got any other counties that have gone to this type of ordinance for the way the pay is?
Well, I know Benton County just passed to the max. I think they did it a little differently. And I don't remember the third county or how they're doing it. I have to go look that up.
Not necessarily do we need to, look at, what I would like to see happen is before the the quorum court meeting where we would finalize this. Somebody check with Association of Counties to reassure me that, I'm gonna vote for this now, but I'd like to have some reassurance from Association of Counties that this ordinance and what we're about to do is like within the guidelines of the, you know, what the state's allowing us to do.
Okay,
If that could be, I'd sure appreciate it.
I
Thank
can
you.
do that, not an issue. But I do think you and JP Rhea-Stafford are correct that there are a lot of us that ran unopposed this last term, right? That may change, that will probably change with this increase, right? So, were you done, were you not done?
I thought I was, but you brought up, I did, you remind. There, it is red. You reminded me, I left one thing out. I certainly appreciated JP Rio Stafford's presentation, and I also, I agree with what she brought up. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. JP Rivera Lopez?
You got it.
Did I?
Yes,
Okay.
You got it.
Now I'll get Brian's as well.
If I may, with the comptroller, I would like to clarify something here. It might be for my want of understanding. So the budget for the last year, the last budget that was passed had allocated the most of these funds, correct? And all that was missing is that there was not an ordinance in place for those funds to be allocated towards our pay, correct?
Correct. But you would have to allocate more because we based it on $300
Yeah.
a meeting.
The max was budgeted before, and on this one, it was not budgeted to the max.
Correct.
Okay, and the amendment is just so that the max is allocated and we are paid the max that was agreed upon prior.
Correct.
Okay. I apologize, that may have been,
No.
but that's really the question that I had. That's all the clarity that I need. And again, to reiterate the sentiment of most of the people, or well, most of the people that we've heard from so far, when we are talking about getting a more representative sample, I believe that I am the youngest person on this court, but you know, Massengill's giving me a run for my money. I know he looks real young. But again, for people who are working every day, this is to make it more enticing for young people to get involved. For young people who, I mean, it's not looked as a way to supplement income, but it looks as something where civil engagement is not taking away from their economic viability. And for those reasons, I am a proponent of this because we should want to encourage people to lower the barriers to be able to participate civilly. And doing so means that those people are compensated for the time they're dedicating to make good decisions for the people of this county. And it would appear as though if, you know, if we stay where we are, there's a lot of inertia about us going forward and ever making a change. So at the very least, simply because we have to do something, I think we should elevate this matter, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. JP Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to say some things just because I think they need to be said. 12 years ago, I got on JP as a JP. I think it was 12. And I didn't even know that we were going to get a salary. I ran not even knowing that you got paid. I thought it was a voluntary deal. And so my point on that is sometimes our intentions is not doing it for money, but we're doing it because we want to do it. Number two, I had asked the previous, I won't say that. I'll say that I asked who decides how much a JP makes years ago. And he was an attorney, he was an attorney, he still is an attorney, but it wasn't Brian Lester. It was before Brian, or I was before Brian. And he said the state representatives decide. So all these years until this year, I've always thought that the state reps decided. This is the first time, this is the very first time as a JP I've heard this discussed. I never remember sitting here talking about our salaries. We just didn't do it, and the reason I thought we didn't do it was because I thought that was their responsibility, the state's, not ours. And so we never got one, and I'd see those same state reps and say, y'all ever gonna give us a raise? No, we're not. You know, they'd say, no, we're not, just because out of jest more than anything else, but not even knowing that they didn't do it. But I thought, so the point being, people are asking, well, gosh, that's a big raise, a big increase. Well, it's not changed in 10 or 12 years, maybe even farther. Butch could tell me if it went back farther. So it's not like we've got a raise every year. And I'll say this, it's gotten to the point where it costs more to run for office than it is that you make while you're in office. So it's really a losing proposition as far as that goes, just to tell you. And you'll pay more attention to it when you live off of a fixed income. You notice it a little bit more than you do when you're making good money. But so really and truly, and here's another one to know. When we get asked to go out to a CUP, and I've always tried to go to every CUP that we vote on. That's just something that I did. I felt like I needed to see the property. You know how much I got paid for mileage? Zero. Do you know how much time I got, or how much money I got paid for compensation for my hours spent going to that location? Maybe down at Strickler, maybe even farther than that. But I'd go and look at them. If it was road concerns, I'd go look at them. You know how much I got paid for looking at road concerns or anything else? Zero. We didn't get, only place that we get mileage for is coming to court. And so everything else is strictly on your own. And so I can walk away without being paid, period, and still do the job. That's not my point. But when someone says, oh my gosh, you're getting such a huge raise. Well, we haven't had a raise in 12 years. And that's what I can speak to. And Butch was nodding his head that it's even been longer than that. So if you went back to what, well, everybody wants to use eggs. What did eggs cost you 12 years ago? And what do they cost you now? Since that's our gold standard anymore is eggs. And so I'll be fine either way. I'll get up and walk out and I won't worry about it. But I do worry about for other people that are serving that may really get hurt. I didn't know I had to pay for that. I didn't know that I was going to have to go and look at these locations. I didn't know that we wouldn't get paid mileage. I didn't know that my time that I've served away from here is on me. So I'm just saying those things because I felt like they needed to be said, because you don't have the 12-year history of knowing this. And this is the first meeting I've ever been to where we talked about what a JP should make or not make. So guess what? Y'all are right in there with us for the first time, and you're brand new. So if you get this raise, then you can compensate all of us that have already been here for 12 years. You can kick into our campaign, you know. And so I jest in that. But I just felt like some of that needed to be said because everybody, oh my gosh, you know. If it were 100% increase, it would still be like, wouldn't be equal to what it was 12 years ago. So thank you so much for letting me vent. You know, I'll go away happy either way.
Thank you, J.P. Dennis. J.P. Aki?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all, the Association of Counties has a salary range for all of us to abide by, and that's constitutional. When I first joined the court and I was part of personnel, and what we have always used as our gauge, we had a minimum of first year, 3 year. This is what the people, this is entry level. Then after a while, if you stayed with us long enough, then you got advanced to the mid-range of whatever that position called for. Then you had the maximum. So that was always the standard. You had the minimum, the mid, and the maximum range allowable for that particular position. Well, we did that faithfully to all the county employees for years. And when I brought up, what about the JPs, I was chastised. And we stacked meetings on top of each other, so $200 a meeting, you only got 100, or you got 200, but you gave your time for free for the other meeting if you were in both committees. You didn't get paid for being on both committees, correct? So it's the AAC, the Association of Counties, that established that range, and you can go to their website and see what all the other counties paid. Class 2 counties, actually, I think I had it. They pay their JPs $225 a meeting, where we were being paid $200. As far as this last year's budget, I read and I assumed when it said elected officials are to move to the maximum range. I was thrilled because I'm an elected official. And I was not aware that years ago there was an ordinance that said, no, you're not an elected official, you're only a part-time. And that was an ordinance. I was not aware of that ordinance, but yet it has an effect on what our budget demanded. Anyway, I assumed that it was included. It did not. Therefore, an amendment to the budget will be made to include this ordinance. And I think it's high time that we value the position that we hold on this court as much as other counties value their JPs on their court as well. Being the AAC representative, and you go to the AAC and I find out that almost everybody in that room, except for 4 counties, are being paid more and are valued at a higher rate than we are. Last year, Pulaski County JP's monthly income was $1,448. That's how much they made. They had 1 meeting. That's how much they get paid per meeting. Sebastian County has 1 meeting. They don't have committee meetings. Last year, Sebastian County, it's a smaller county, would get $1,024. I said, per meeting? Oh, yeah. I said, you're kidding. Nope, that's what we get paid. I said, I think somebody's been asleep at the wheel, and I'm part of it because in personnel, we took care of everybody else except for the JPs. And I think it's time to pass this. Just to make a quick note on the reason why you have to be there half the meeting. My first and second term as a JP, I would witness a particular JP come in. She would sign her thing, turn it in, sit down, we'd say the prayer and the pledge. Then she would just casually just get up and leave after 10 minutes. And I brought it up to the county attorney then. I said, wait a minute, that's not right. JP Ecke, unless you change it, can't do anything about it. I said, they just show up, and they would do that time after time. So that's the reason why this is in there, and I'm glad that that is in there. I think that's it. But this is not what we rascals are doing and giving ourselves a pay raise. This is what the Association of Counties, under the Constitution, has allowed us to be paid, and we've just been derelict in our responsibilities of taking care of ourselves all these years. So I'm going to be in supportive of this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, J.P. Ecke. J.P. Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would just like to remind everyone that the reason we even have this ordinance was very clear from the beginning. We're in the top 3 counties in terms of population, and we're county 71 out of 75 in terms of pay. I believe that the spirit of this is so that there is some equity in where we are in terms of population and what we have to do in terms of being a justice of the peace. We talked about a lot of things, and if you look at this by raw numbers, yeah, that's about 170% increase. It is, if you look at raw numbers. But I think we also would agree, and my colleagues would agree, that none of us only come in here and sit in these meetings. We're answering emails, we're going to visit CUPs, we're talking to constituents, we're performing wedding ceremonies, we're doing a lot of other things. So I understand that, yes, if you're looking at this in terms of raw numbers and at face values, does it seem like a huge increase? Yes. But I think that what our comptroller said was so poignant, that we really waited too long to do something. I've been on the court for 6 years, and in 6 years, nothing has changed. And I'm like JP Dennis, I didn't even know that we got a salary for doing this. I thought I was just volunteering my time. So will there be some unintended benefits of this? Absolutely. Could it increase the number of people that we have to run? It absolutely could. Will this make things better in the future? It absolutely could. But I think we need to focus on right now. And I don't know, I don't want us to miss the point that if we're the third largest county, that we're number 71 out of 75 in terms of pay. And I believe that is the foundation and that's the spirit of this. Everything else, we need to be able to explain this to our constituents, because if they're looking at raw numbers, yeah, I mean, of course, they're gonna say, oh, I can't believe you're getting that big of a raise. But when we look at what we do, we're spending more than an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, for our 3 meetings to come here. So I really hope that everybody that's sitting around this horseshoe would consider giving this a good vote. This is not about grabbing money. This is not about any of those things, but it really is about us as a county. I mean, we're Washington County, and it's pretty disappointing, disheartening to know that we're Washington County. We're the model for so many other counties, but in terms of paying our justices of the peace, we're at the bottom. And I just don't want Washington County to be at the bottom of any list.
Thank you, J.P. Washington. J.P. Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. I want to say I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. I really, the discussion's gone on for a while, but this is rare that I could say this or anyone can say this. I haven't heard anything tonight that I thought was an unreasonable comment or that didn't make sense or that I didn't agree with myself. And so I think it's been productive discussion. But I will say that I'm one of those, this is only my second term. So I've been sitting here in meetings a little more than 2 years. Still feel brand new in a lot of ways. But I will say that when I first ran, some people approached me about running for this particular position, and I didn't know that it was a paid position myself either. But I thought, well, where can I jump in and maybe do some good? And I think a lot of you probably felt the same way, regardless of whether there's money involved or not. I really believe that, you can't speak for everyone in this room, but I'm going to take a stab at it tonight. I don't think anybody here got involved in this capacity because we felt like it was a lucrative endeavor. Because most of us, sounds like we either thought, does it pay anything or does it not pay very much? And I remember I did ask during my first campaign, do I get paid if I win? And they said, yeah, but it's not very much. That's the reply I got. And I thought, well, okay, so I went from, in my mind, 0 to not very much. So to me, that was a raise at that time, in my mind. But, I will say that a lot of good points have been made here. And the public, the average voter in Washington County probably doesn't understand how many hours that this might involve if you do it right. And I will say that probably some of them may not care. They may say that's your job, that's what you signed up for. If it takes several more hours a week, they may not care. And I understand that because they have concerns of their own. That doesn't mean it's not true, everything that's been stated tonight. But I will also say that if you talk to the average voter in Washington County, and if somebody said, you know, in Fayetteville, for example, if somebody said, we're not going to pay the mayor of Fayetteville any more than we pay the mayor of Hogeye gets, you know, no offense to Hogeye, or do they even have a mayor? I'm not sure. But my point is, there's no fair-minded voter who would say, you know, that's perfectly legitimate. Little bitty town, we don't want to pay our officials any more than the very small town, and that's the same principle I think has been talked about tonight. So I do appreciate the conversation, bringing a lot of things to light. Conversation that needs to be had. So I appreciate it, and I don't have any trouble. I mean, if we were to pass this ordinance in some form or fashion, I don't have any trouble telling a constituent, you know, we're one of the biggest counties in the state, and we're paid like we're one of the smallest. That doesn't bother me to say that, because everybody wants somebody to be paid what is quote unquote the going rate, pretty much. So that seems like where the conversation has gone. So I appreciate that, and it doesn't bother me to support this ordinance. So thank you.
Thank you, JB's Wilson. Well, you have to be recognized first. Not yet, sorry. JP Koger.
Hello.
Earlier.
Did you say JP Koger?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to say some of the things that JP Wilson said, some of the things that I was going to say, but I want to say I really appreciate the discussion we've had tonight. It's been very, very productive. It's been I have learned a lot, and over the weekend, I got bogged down in where that $913.33 came from. And so anyway, my colleagues have changed my mind. I was against this. I'm going from what you've said and from what everyone said. I will vote for this. But I have a question, and if it got answered last time, I didn't hear it. What about my question about, don't we need to amend this to have line items with specific amounts like Mr. Sherman read off?
I think we heard we do. If you allow, if we pass it, we'll put that in for the quorum court.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Well, nobody else is there. Do you really want me to go through that? No. Okay, thank you. So I have JP Lyons made a motion, seconded by JP Dean, to pass this item number 9 on to the quorum court with a due pass recommendation. All those that are in favor of the ordinance, say aye. Aye. All not in favor, no? No. The ayes pass, so this will pass on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item 10 is an ordinance amending the HIV clinic budget for 2025. JP Rio Stafford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I didn't quite, I'm in favor of giving them the money, but I didn't quite understand the ordinance. And let me pull this up because my tablet died here. So Article 1 says that all remaining funds totaling $61,786.21 shall be transferred basically to the clinic. But in Article 2, it says we're reducing the total amount by $119,000. And I guess I didn't quite understand that. If someone could explain.
So one is cash flow. That's how much money's left in the bank, actual money.
Okay.
Is the 61,000. And on the last, when we passed the budget, we went ahead and budgeted for next year. So all we're doing with that, whatever that is, the second article or third article, the 100 and some thousand, is just deappropriating the budget.
De-appropriating money that's not in there yet, but is.
Correct. Just
would have been
de-appropriating the
expected
budget.
to be there. I see.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
But all we're giving them is the 61,000. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What you guys did a few months ago was budgeted back as if the operations were still going to be withheld or held by Washington County. Those operations have transferred totally to community clinic, and I want to say this is one of the few times that this might be a win-win in government. We've gotten this to a better place where I think patients are going to get care. That $61,000 was a balance that we had in an account that had accumulated over 30 years of the HIV clinic's operation. We don't have documentation about where that source came from. We believe some of it was seed money that was put up by us and our contractual partners, Washington Regional and Benton County, to get it off the ground. And so what we've agreed, and I want to thank our contractual partners, Benton County and Washington Regional, have agreed to give that balance of money to community clinics so that they can continue their operations. That was seed money that belonged to them. Like I said, it could have come from us, and it also could have come from donations over the years that people made to the clinic. And so in my mind, that money was intended for the operations of the clinic, and we've all agreed as partners to just move that money to community clinic.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. You know, I'm grateful for the fact that community clinic has stepped in and is keeping this HIV clinic alive. I think this money, you know, it's not, we don't know the complete origin, but it sounds like this money does rightfully belong to the HIV clinic. So I'll make I move to pass this with a due pass recommendation to the full quorum court.
Any further discussion? I think I know your point of order. I missed on the last one. Is that what we're doing? I apologize. I've got it written down. I just blew over it. Apologize to the citizens. I did pass over the vote before providing committee citizen comment. Any citizen comment on this ordinance?
Sherry Main, 15451 Richards Road, Fayetteville. I don't have actually any public comment on this particular ordinance, but you skipped by the ordinance that you just passed with public comment, and I did show up tonight to speak to that ordinance and even prepared 4 or 5 hours today of my time that I don't get paid for to add some facts to this to possibly understand better. Maybe not, but I would still like to be heard. Thank you.
Any citizens' comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Had a motion by J.P. Stafford to pass this on to the full quorum court. The due pass recommendation is second by J.P. Ecke. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It passes on to the full quorum court. Item 11 is an ordinance amending the Wheeler Road Bridge Grant Fund budget for 2025. Based on the ordinance that's here, basically, it's receiving, we're getting additional grant funds for the Wheeler Road Bridge project that needs to be appropriated into the grant fund. And this ordinance basically makes that appropriate. J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we pass this on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by J.P. Ecke to pass it on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation, a second by J.P. Dean. Any additional discussion? J.P. Lemon?
Yeah, I'd probably need to ask the judge, if I could. This is $200,000. Is it going to the engineering and architect of that bridge? that's what it says. So is that architect work and engineering 200,000? That's what it's costing us?
I'm sorry?
The engineering and architect work costing us 200,000
I
on that
don't know what,
bridge?
did the judge step? Okay. Article 2 says it's being applied to that line item. That's as much as I know. Sorry. Any other discussion? Any citizen comment on item 11?
Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville. With all due respect, Chair, I did not get to public comment on the very first ordinance that was read, and I don't have any comment on this ordinance, but I feel it's important to be consistent in calling for public comment. So that's my public comment right now. I have to hold off till the end. It kind of defeats the purpose before the vote. Thank you.
Understand, apologize for missing that. I can't go back. So you can take one of the comment periods, I guess, do whatever you want with it, or with the end, we'll have the citizens comment and you can provide it then. It's the best I can do right now. Sorry. Item 12, we have a motion by, that's what I get for writing notes ahead. Item 11, a motion by J.P. Ecke and a second by J.P. Dean to pass this on to the full quorum court to do pass recommendation. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. This pass on to the full quorum court. Item 12, an ordinance amending the Circuit Court 7 budget for 2025. I think we have Judge Taylor. Do you want to come and provide additional content on this item?
Thank you. Right. Thank you for having me this evening and allowing me to talk to my request. As you know, I have taken over the bulk of the criminal cases for Washington County and all of the criminal cases for Madison County, and inherited, in doing that, close to 7,000 cases that are pending. And I just want to tell you that we have been working extremely hard in Division 7 since even before the first of the year when we took over that docket. And I have some numbers to report to you about what we have done since January 1. Since January 1, we have called 1,684 cases and have closed for at least 428 cases. That is on the record in court, and that is a closure of about 25%. And that is a number that I'm extremely proud of, and it's taken a whole lot of work. The goal is to work through any backlog that was caused either by COVID or by some other docket management. And as I wrote in my letter to you, I went to Little Rock and I have talked to some other judges across the state who use other docket management techniques, even from the one that I was using when I had 25% of the docket. And there are statistics that are available to the court. There is case management data that is available to the court that is not being used to benefit the court. The numbers are collected and they're reported by the state, but we are not using the system. No one in Washington County, as far as I know, is using the system that is provided by the state to be able to work the docket, for me to know what is on the docket, what those 7,000 cases are.